Have you found that since you discovered our teachings, your insomnia has all but vanished? You have found things getting significantly easier for you, but you're not quite at a place where you've entirely left insomnia land. There are some final questions, some final challenges, and you're sensing that if you could only answer these, then you would be where you want to be. If this sounds familiar to you, in this episode, which is a special one, we will look at some questions from someone who is at this very place, is going to be really helpful for you. Hi there, and welcome to this episode of Insomnia Insight, in which we are going to return to a format that we haven't used in quite a while, and it is the letter. When we started this channel a couple of years ago, we used to get letters sometimes and just read them. We used to have success stories in forms of letters. We used to get questions in forms of letters too, but we haven't done that for in a long time for some reason. But a few weeks ago, I think it was about 2 weeks ago, I did get an email from someone who's actually been a guest on our YouTube channel who's shared her story. And as you will tell very shortly, this is someone who's gone from a place of like intense struggle to a place where things are significantly easier, but not struggle free. There's still some questions, still some lingering concerns, still some situations where it's not clear how to meet them. So I called this late stage insomnia recovery. And the person who has written a letter to us agreed to me sharing the letter and commenting on it here. But I didn't ask about sharing the name. So I'm just going to call the person Amy. I'm just going to call this person Amy. And I have in the letter, I have added some highlighting for myself. I've added some highlighting for things in the letter where we see like very, very nice insight that we just want to amplify and highlight. And I've added some commentary on things that I think we can kind of untangle, if you will. As I was preparing this episode, this image came to me of how we humans can sort of like think ourselves into a knot. Like we can have so many thoughts going in all kinds of directions that they become kind of knot. And then the recovery path of it also can seem like it has a knot in it. It's not clear where we're where we're going or how we can arrive where we want to be, right? So a lot of this is going to be about untangling. So we're going to highlight some real nice insight, and we're going to find some knots, if you will, in this letter that we can untangle together. Hopefully this will be really, really helpful for Amy and anyone else who tunes in here and finds themselves in a similar place. So here is the letter. Let's read it together. I've come so far on my journey, as you know from our interview, that I was so honored to be part of. I really feel as though I'm in my final hurdle right now, and I'm so grateful to finally be at this point. This is where I really could use a quick piece of advice, though, just to help me push through this last bit. And I'm actually going to pause right there because the wording there, push through, I thought was one of these like mini knots that can help for us to look at and untangle, if you will. It can appear when we look backwards and look at where we were and where we are now, that if we must have arrived where we want to be through some type of effort, through doing things, through maybe deploying courage, pushing ourselves to do things that are uncomfortable for us, And when we have that idea and we find that there's still a little bit of struggle left, then it can seem like there is this final hurdle. We've jumped through over a bunch of hurdles. Things are getting easy for us. There's just one last leap we need to do, one thing to push through, one last thing to conquer, if you will, one last thing to overcome. But in reality, it's not like that. That's not actually what has happened. What has happened is the following. When we started the journey, we were trying a lot. We were pushing, we were fighting, we were trying to break the cycle, et cetera, et cetera. And then we learned that it was just a big misunderstanding. Insomnia really is rooted on a big misunderstanding. We don't need to try supplements or medications. We don't need to adjust our sleep schedule. We don't need to do sleep hygiene, et cetera, et cetera. And we deployed less and less and less effort. And that's how we arrived at a place where things are much, much easier for us. And when we see it this way, we realize that there's not one last thing to push through. Rather, there is one last hurdle to stop looking at as a hurdle. Like there's one last piece of effort, if you will, to let go of. One more thing to just surrender. That is where we at. So all this we can learn simply from really the word push through. And this is the first knot that we want to look at. And so, and looking at the word push through and learning from that, really, really helpful. Let's keep reading. I feel relatively calm at night, and I'm so exhausted and excited to go to bed now. And by the way, I want to just briefly stop here and say that, before we go any further, of course, like this message is a very, very nice one. It's wonderful that Amy has arrived where Amy is at. And it's so nice to hear that Amy is actually excited to go to bed, etc. So whenever I'm coaching, I always try to highlight those things. I don't want to forget that here, to make it look like I'm only looking for like knots. Let's untangle this knot. Let's untangle this knot. Let's look for, things where this person is thinking in a tricky way. No, there's so much wonderful, nice things to highlight in this letter. So I don't want to forget about that. Little parenthesis there. However, I constantly have a racing mind. It's not even anxious or intrusive thoughts, though. It's just chatter, which is why this is so confusing to me. There's just so much of it that I just am not falling asleep at all. My mind just seems so busy and won't quiet down enough for me to fall asleep. Even if I end up falling asleep after a while, I'll wake up and it will be the same thing all over again when I lay back down. And as you can see, the words I highlighted here for myself is won't quit down enough. And of course, I misspelled down. I said done instead. We have to correct that just for the purpose of correcting that there. Won't quit, or what was it? Won't quiet. Oh my goodness, it was two mistakes here. Quiet there. Won't quiet down enough. All right, so here's the thing. Chatter, the way I see it, is just the way we perceive thoughts. Like we hear our thoughts. We can say we quote unquote hear them as chatter. And the thing is that there is no time when our mind is not producing thoughts. It's constantly producing thoughts, right? Once in the blue moon, we can just be spacing out and realize we didn't think about something. But then, there we go. We had another thought. Like the mind is always full of thoughts. Like there's always chatter going on about random things. Now, when we don't think of this chatter, quote unquote, as anything unusual or strange, it doesn't bother us. We don't even realize often that this chatter is going on. But if we start having the thought that if I have this chatter, quote unquote, if I have thoughts running in my mind, I won't fall asleep, then of course, these thoughts, the chatter, quote unquote, can seem like a threat. It can seem like something that can keep us awake. And then we start taking note of it. Then we describe it as chatter, and then we wonder why it's there. We wonder why the content is so random. We're like, I'm not even worried, so why am I still having this chatter? While in reality, chatter is like the baseline, state of the brain. There's always thoughts produced. And so I highlighted won't quiet down enough because it shows us that there's an idea that the chatter has to calm down for sleep to happen. And when we have that idea, then of course, if we notice that there are thoughts running around our head, there's chatter, then we'll think, oh no, there's chatter, then that's going to keep me from sleeping. And that can keep us awake. The concern that the chatter is going to keep us from sleeping, that concern can keep us awake. It's not the chatter itself. It's the thoughts about the chatter. So it's like our thoughts about our thoughts that can keep us awake. And when we see this, what is so helpful is, of course, that then we go like, oh, there's this chatter in my brain, and that's totally normal, right? There's nothing I need to do about that. And every single human being who falls asleep has chatter in the brain just before they fall asleep. So there's like lack of chatter is not a prerequisite for sleep to happen whatsoever. So I think that is another little knot that we hopefully have untied here. Let's keep reading. I'm very confused on how to handle this. I try to lay there and not get out of bed because at least resting feels good. I also don't want to run away from the thoughts. And here I said a little nice here because that's a very nice insight that if we try to run away from thoughts, they're amplified because thoughts are essentially like messages. Thoughts are a way that the brain communicates with us. And sometimes, when I say that it communicates with us, it can sound like, oh, so every little message, every little thought we have is really important and I need to pay attention to it. Not at all. A lot of it is just this background chatter. The brain is like, what about this? What about that? What about this? What about that? But if we try to stop that, or we try to be like, I can't have thoughts, then then the brain goes like, oh, you're trying to avoid these thoughts, you're trying to avoid this. Oh, then I probably should emphasize this because these thoughts to the brain may have some importance, or the brain may think that they're important, right? So the more we try to stop thoughts, the more amplified they are. It's basically like you try to tell somebody something that is like of medium importance to you, but they're like, no, I don't want to hear it. Then you're like, wait, you don't want to hear it? But I want to tell you this, right? So thoughts are amplified the more we try to resist them. So this insight that the more we try to stop them, the stronger they become. Very, very nice insight. That's what I wanted to amplify by the little nice highlighting there. So laying in bed, I think, is a way of facing the question mark. Now, I highlighted try here. It said in the sentence, I try to lay there. And whenever I see the word try, it automatically, my spidey senses goes off, like the sleep effort police, or the effort police, it comes out in me. And I think, okay, so laying down, in bed just to rest, just because it feels good, very, very nice. But as soon as I see I try, that makes me think, okay, maybe there is a semi-conscious purpose of laying down. Maybe there is some hope or expectation that laying down will produce some desired outcome, like sleep, right? So whenever we find ourselves saying I try, it can be an invitation for us to see that this is a little knot, and we can untie that knot by just seeing that what we want requires nothing, so there's nothing we need to try. When we try, we introduce some effort, and that can be tricky. Okay, so we looked at that. Now let's keep going. If I got out of bed, I believe it would just be because I'm trying to turn them off, which I know isn't the answer. Very nice. And we already said why, but again, very, very nice insight here. However, are these normal for people to have? Now, I already answered this in one way, but I was thinking, if this was in, let's say, a group coaching call, or in any type of context where there were more people present, I would be like, does anybody in the audience or anybody present here recognize themselves as sometimes having this random chatter in their minds? And I bet that everybody's hand goes up. If there were 10 people in the room, like 10 hands would go up, right? I think it is not only is it normal, I think it's like an inescapable reality of having a human mind, that we have this chatter and these random thoughts all the time. So yes, I think this is very, very normal for people to have. I am trying to just let them be there, not fight them. I haven't seen any improvement this way, though. This sentence to me reminds me of this like one word that tells me so much, and that's the word still. Now, Amy didn't use the word still here, but it might as well just have been there. It could have been like, I'm trying to just let them be there and not fight them, but I still have them, right? I'm not seeing any improvement. I still have them. And to me, that's really helpful to find this little knot, because it shows intent. It shows that trying to lay there, or no, how did Amy describe this? Yeah, I'm trying to just let them be there. Oh, we have try again, which we talked about before. And we see that I'm trying to just let them be there, not to fight them. That sounds, with the exception of maybe, the word try, which is, a little bit of a little mini knot there. It sounds nice to just let them be there and not fight them. But the second part shows that there was an intent there, right? The idea was, if I don't fight them and let them be there, they will go away. And so this is not really accepting or letting them be. It's sort of like, if I don't fight them, I will win, something like that. If I accept them, they will go away. Where acceptance is like, well, they're here and that's okay. I'm not going to try to make them go away, right? So here, we see that there is kind of this hidden intent, and there is some effort here, which is really helpful to know. Let's keep reading. But I have realized that I am not fond of my brain being so awake and running constantly. So could that be a reason why they continue? Because I am, in reality, sort of resisting them and wondering why they're happening and subconsciously trying to get them to stop. Very, very nice. And when I got to this part of the letter, I'm like, actually, Amy knows everything. Amy's seeing through everything. So as I got to this part of the letter, I'm like, oh, okay, so maybe this, all these questions are really more about kind of reassurance and like pointing out that Amy's actually seeing things very, very clearly. But what we just read, nothing to add. Like super, super helpful, super nice. Is a racing mind a form in itself of silent hyperarousal that fades over time if we don't fight it? I try to not engage and just let them be in flow. Like I said, though, they have been very persistent and haven't been getting any better. I don't want to start falling back into trying things like deep breathing or trying to focus on something else, because I know there are teachings that doesn't solve anything long term. Again, very, very nice insight here. And if you go to the first sentence, is a racing mind a form in itself of silent hyperarousal that fades over time if we don't fight it? I think the short answer there is yes. But I think even without hyperarousal, even in just the baseline state of arousal that we humans are in whenever we are awake, comes with random thoughts, right? And if there is a little bit of maybe fear in the background, a little bit of worry, a little bit of anxiety, a little bit of hyperarousal, yeah, they can be, we can have more thoughts, or like, more intense thoughts, or we're thinking a bit more than we otherwise would. Yes. But even without that, there are always thoughts, there are always chatter, there's always things going on in the brain. So, and other than that, it was really nice. Again, here we see Amy sees that, knows that resistance is tricky, and that Amy does not want to start falling back into deep breathing and trying to focus with just these obvious efforts. And Amy's also seeing that we have these kind of like subconscious, like more subtle efforts. And again, like just seeing that automatically leads to less and less effort. So I think this was really, really nice. And let's keep reading. Does this just take time, just like other forms of hyperarousal? Short answer to me is absolutely. And I was thinking of the, raise your hand if type of thing here also, like, and if we gathered a bunch of people who've all like left the insomnia struggle, and we said, does that like subtle hyperarousal and things of that nature take some time for it to fade away? I think it would be the same thing. Like everybody in the room would be like, yeah, it's like that. Okay, let's keep reading. I didn't know if me ever even coming here and asking this proves that it's something I am not truly welcoming. And that is the reason they continue. Even something as innocent as letting them be and just trying to think of something happy while they go on in the background of my head feels like it's an effort and too, quote unquote, forced. Correct? I thought this was very nice. Nothing to add. I think this is just super, super, super nice clarity and insight. I would love your take on this and would appreciate it more than I can express. Again, I'm so sorry for reaching out to you like this, but I really need one last bit of guidance, as this is one thing I haven't really seen in any videos on, and something I haven't really experienced yet. And I know I'm so close to recovery. And here I said, from the inside perspective, it can look different. And, for Amy, who wrote this to us, clearly Amy's not making this up. Amy truly has a sense that this is different than what I went through so far. This is something that I haven't heard discussed on this channel. Like, this is something special. But for most people who, like myself, are sort of like observers and just listeners, we can see very clearly that there is nothing new or different here. It is the exact same questions and the exact same answers that help in any phase of the journey, right? And I think Amy herself, no doubt, when just a little time passes, we'll see that, oh, those questions I had when I sent that email to Daniel, they were the same questions I had in the beginning. Just, the level of clarity was different, and the context was maybe a little different, but I'd say there's nothing principally new or different here than anywhere else on the journey or any of our teachings or anything like that. And finally, you and your channel have helped me come so far, and this is just one last thing I have not yet faced. Thanks so much. Anytime, and I'm just grateful whenever I get a chance to share lived experiences like this, a chance to help, and a chance to kind of demonstrate how we think as coaches, when somebody shares something with us, like how we pick up on certain phrases and sort of certain words, and how that can help with the unknotting, if you will. All right, we'll conclude there. So nice to have you here, and hope to see you real soon. Bye for now.
Hi, it's me, Coach Daniel, and I hope you are feeling excited right now because you're so close to the finish line of Insomnia. And if you found that aha moment you've been looking for in this video, please share it with the world. Because insomnia can be such a lonely and isolating place before you find our community. Speaking of which, if you would like some more personalized support on your journey, then head over to thesleepcoachschool.com. We have free and paid courses available with certified sleep coaches who have seen the worst of insomnia, left the struggle, and now are ready to help you. If you decide to join, we look forward to seeing you on the other side.